You picked up your phone this morning before you even said a single word to yourself, before you stretched, before you breathed in the quiet of a new day, before you gave your mind even one moment to simply exist. Your thumb was already moving, scrolling, searching, consuming, and you probably didn't even notice because it has become that automatic, that deeply wired into the rhythm of your daily life. But here is what nobody told you when you downloaded those apps, when you created those accounts, when you started chasing those little red notification bubbles. Nobody told you that with every single scroll, with every tap, with every like and share and story you swiped through, you were not just spending time, you were spending your brain. You were, quietly and gradually, allowing the most powerful and complex organ in the known universe to be restructured, rewired, and reshaped by an algorithm that was designed with one single purpose: to keep you coming back. And it is working. It is working better than almost anything human beings have ever engineered before, because it is not targeting your willpower. It is not testing your discipline. It is going far deeper than that. It is speaking directly to the oldest, most primal parts of your neurology, and it is winning. Not because you are weak, but because the game was designed in a way that makes it nearly impossible to walk away without understanding what is actually happening inside your mind. Let that sink in for a moment. This is not about blame. This is not about shaming you for checking Instagram at midnight or spending 45 minutes watching videos when you meant to watch only one. This is about truth. Real, scientific, measurable truth that most people will never hear explained in a way that actually makes them feel something. Because when you understand what is happening inside your brain, not in theory, not in vague terms, but in actual physical, neurological reality, everything changes. The way you see your phone changes. The way you see your habits changes. And most powerfully, the way you see yourself and your capacity to reclaim your own mind changes completely. Here is where we begin. Deep inside your brain, there is a system that was built over hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution. It is called the dopamine reward system, and its original purpose was beautiful and essential. It was designed to motivate you, to reward you when you found food, when you connected with other humans, when you accomplished something meaningful and real. Every time you did something that helped you survive or thrive, your brain released a surge of dopamine, that powerful neurochemical that produces the sensation of pleasure, satisfaction, and the deep drive to do it again. This system kept our ancestors alive. It kept them moving, searching, building, and connecting. It is one of the most magnificent pieces of biological engineering in the history of life on this planet. And now, social media has hacked it completely. Every notification is a dopamine trigger. Every like on your photo is a dopamine trigger. Every new comment, every follower gained, every viral moment. Each one of these sends a tiny burst of dopamine racing through your neural pathways, creating a sensation that your brain registers as reward, as success, as connection. And just like every other reward in life, your brain immediately begins to crave it again. The problem, the serious, deeply consequential problem, is that unlike real achievements, unlike genuine human connection, unlike the satisfaction that comes from creating something meaningful with your time and energy, these digital dopamine hits are instant, effortless, and infinite. There is always another scroll. There is always another video. There is always another thing to react to compare yourself to get momentarily excited or outraged or entertained by, and so the cycle never ends. The reward never fully satisfies, and over time, your brain begins to change. This is where the research becomes impossible to ignore. Neuroimaging studies, brain scans conducted on real people who use social media heavily, have revealed patterns of neural activity and structural changes that mirror, with striking similarity, what scientists observe in individuals struggling with substance addiction. The dopamine pathways become altered. The threshold for what the brain considers rewarding begins to shift. Real-world experiences, a quiet conversation, a walk in nature, an hour spent reading or creating or simply being present, begin to feel flat, unstimulating, almost boring. Because your brain has been trained, conditioned through relentless repetition to expect the kind of rapid, intense, and varied stimulation that only a screen can deliver. Nothing else quite measures up anymore. And that is not a metaphor. That is a measurable, documented, neurological reality. This is exactly the kind of truth that Dr. Mindful Shift has built an entire philosophy around. The idea that before you can shift your life, before you can shift your habits or your happiness or your sense of purpose, you must first understand the territory of your own mind. You must be willing to look honestly at what is shaping your thoughts, your moods, your attention, and your sense of self. Because the mind that you carry into every moment of your day is not fixed, it is not permanent. It is deeply, profoundly responsive to everything you expose it to. And right now, for many people, the single most powerful influence shaping that mind is not their values, not their goals, not the people they love. It is the content they consume in those small, stolen, seemingly harmless moments of scrolling. Now, here is where it gets darker. Here is where the story takes a turn that most people are not prepared for. Because up until this point, you may have been nodding along, thinking, yes, I check my phone too much. I know that. Everyone does. It is fine. But it is not fine. And the reason it is not fine goes far beyond distraction, far beyond wasted hours, far beyond the productivity loss that self-help books love to talk about. What is happening to millions of people right now, perhaps to you, perhaps to someone you love deeply, is something far more serious, far more silent, and far more difficult to reverse the longer it is left unaddressed. Because the rewiring of your brain's reward system does not stop at dopamine. It bleeds into everything. It seeps into the way you feel about yourself when you wake up in the morning. It colors the way you interpret your own worth, your own value, your own place in the world. And it does this so slowly, so quietly, so seamlessly woven into the fabric of daily life that most people never connect the dots. They just feel worse, and they do not know why. Let us talk about anxiety first, because it is the symptom most people recognize but least understand in this context. When you are constantly connected to a stream of information, news, opinions, highlight reels of other people's lives, global crises, social conflicts, trending outrage, your nervous system is receiving a signal over and over again that the world is urgent, that something is always happening, that you cannot afford to look away, because if you do, you will miss something important, fall behind, or be left out. Your brain, which cannot distinguish between a physical threat and a digital one, responds to this signal the same way it has always responded to danger, by activating your stress response. Cortisol rises, the body tenses, the mind accelerates. And because the stimulation is endless, the stress response never fully deactivates. It just becomes your baseline. It just becomes the water you swim in. Until one day you realize you cannot remember the last time you felt genuinely, deeply calm. Not distracted, not entertained, not numbed, but truly, peacefully calm. That is not a personality trait. That is a neurological consequence. And then there is depression. Not always the kind that announces itself loudly. Not always the kind that keeps you in bed or takes away your ability to function. Often it is the quieter kind, the kind that shows up as a persistent flatness, a low-grade sense of meaninglessness, a feeling that real life is somehow less vivid, less satisfying, less worth being present for than the world inside the screen. Researchers have found consistent links between heavy social media use and elevated rates of depression across age groups, but particularly among young people who have grown up with these platforms as a constant presence. And the mechanism is not complicated once you understand the brain. When your dopamine system has been conditioned to respond to rapid, high-stimulation digital rewards, the slower, quieter, but infinitely more nourishing rewards of real life, deep conversation, creative work, physical presence, personal growth, begin to feel insufficient. Your brain has essentially raised its own reward threshold to a level that ordinary life cannot meet, and the result, experienced from the inside, feels exactly like depression. But perhaps the most insidious consequence of all, the one that Dr. Mindful Shift returns to again and again in his work because it is the one that causes the deepest and most lasting harm, is what happens to your sense of self, to your identity, to the quiet, steady, internal voice that is supposed to tell you who you are, what you value, and what you are worth. Social media, by its very design, is a comparison engine. Every piece of content you consume is an implicit invitation to measure yourself against someone else, their body, their success, their relationships, their lifestyle, their apparent happiness. And your brain, which is wired for social comparison as a survival mechanism, takes every single one of these comparisons seriously. It registers them, it stores them, it builds a picture of where you stand in the social hierarchy, and it updates that picture constantly, obsessively, with every new post you encounter. For most people, that picture is not flattering because social media does not show you reality. It shows you the most curated, filtered, idealized, and carefully constructed version of reality. And your brain compares your unfiltered, messy, complicated, beautifully human inner experience against someone else's highlight reel and finds itself lacking every single time. This is not a small thing. This is not something you can simply think your way out of by reminding yourself that social media is not real. Because the damage is not happening at the level of conscious thought. It is happening at the level of neural conditioning, at the level of repeated emotional experience, at the level of what your brain has been trained through thousands and thousands of micro-exposures to believe is normal, desirable, and attainable, and what it has been trained to believe you are falling short of. And here is the part that should stop you completely, the part that should make you set down whatever you are doing and truly reckon with what is at stake. This process does not plateau. It does not reach a point of equilibrium where the damage stops and you simply exist in a kind of digital numbness. It continues, it deepens. The pathways become more entrenched. The comparisons become more automatic. The self-worth erodes further. And the person you were before all of this, curious, present, grounded, capable of sitting with yourself in silence without reaching for a screen, that person becomes harder and harder to find. But here is what you need to hear right now, in this moment, with everything you have just learned sitting heavy and honest in your chest. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not a victim of your own failure or lack of discipline or absence of willpower. You are a human being with a magnificent, adaptive, endlessly capable brain that responded exactly the way it was designed to respond when exposed to one of the most sophisticated behavioral engineering systems ever created. And the same truth that makes this situation serious is the very truth that makes it solvable. Because if your brain changed in response to what you exposed it to, then your brain can change again. That is not wishful thinking. That is neuroscience. That is the breathtaking, humbling, empowering reality of a concept called neuroplasticity, your brain's lifelong ability to rewire itself, to build new pathways, to restore and strengthen the connections that have been weakened, and to release the grip of the patterns that no longer serve the life you are trying to build. The damage is not permanent. The story is not finished. And the most important chapter, the one where you take back authorship of your own mind, begins the moment you decide to stop scrolling through your life and start actually living it. This is the turning point that Dr. Mindful Shift speaks about with such conviction and such care. The moment a person moves from awareness into action. Because awareness alone, as powerful and necessary as it is never enough. You can understand everything about dopamine pathways and neural conditioning and the psychology of comparison and still pick up your phone the moment you feel bored or anxious or uncertain. Knowledge becomes transformation only when it is paired with deliberate, consistent, compassionate action. And the actions required here are not dramatic. They are not about throwing your phone into a river or deleting every account and moving off the grid. They are about something far more sustainable and far more powerful. They are about redesigning your relationship with technology in a way that honors the complexity of your brain and the depth of your human needs. Small, intentional changes, applied with patience and self-respect, that over time reshape your neural landscape just as surely as the scrolling reshaped it, except this time in a direction that you have consciously chosen. Start with your mornings. The first 30 minutes after you wake up are neurologically precious. Your brain is in a uniquely receptive, calm, and creative state in those early moments, a state that is instantly disrupted the moment you expose it to the stimulation of social media. When you reach for your phone first thing, you are handing the agenda of your mind over to an algorithm before you have even had the chance to hear your own thoughts. Instead, protect that window. Use it for silence, for movement, for journaling, for simply sitting with yourself and allowing your mind to surface what is genuinely on it. This single habit, practiced consistently, begins to rebuild the brain's capacity for self-directed thought, the quiet but essential ability to know your own mind without external input telling you what to feel and what to want. Next, audit your notifications with ruthlessness and intention. Every notification is a tiny hijacking of your attention, a forced context switch that fragments your thinking, elevates your stress response, and reinforces the dopamine loop you are trying to loosen. Turn off every notification that is not genuinely urgent and genuinely human. Let your phone be a tool you pick up with purpose, not a device that summons you at will. This is not about restriction. This is about reclaiming sovereignty over your own attention, which is, when you understand it fully, the same thing as reclaiming sovereignty over your own life. Because where your attention goes, your experience follows. What you repeatedly attend to is what your brain builds itself around. And you deserve to be the one who decides what that is. Then, with equal intention, begin to reintroduce the experiences that your brain's reward system was originally built to respond to. Real, embodied human experiences that produce the kind of deep and lasting satisfaction that no screen has ever genuinely delivered. Long conversations with people you love. Creative work that asks something real of you. Time in nature, which research has consistently shown to lower cortisol, restore attention, and produce a measurable sense of well-being that social media simply cannot replicate. Physical movement, acts of generosity, moments of genuine solitude where you are not consuming or performing or comparing, just existing, fully and quietly in your own skin. Each one of these experiences, repeated with consistency, sends a signal to your brain that real life is rewarding, that presence is pleasurable, that you do not need the screen to feel alive. And slowly, steadily, beautifully, the balance shifts. The craving loosens, the anxiety softens. The self-worth that was quietly eroded begins, piece by piece, to be rebuilt. Not on the foundation of likes and followers and external validation, but on the far more solid and enduring foundation of knowing yourself, trusting yourself, and choosing yourself every single day over the endless noise of a world that profits from your distraction. Your brain built this pattern one scroll at a time, and you will rebuild yourself one intentional moment at a time. The science supports you, the truth empowers you, and the life you are capable of living, present, purposeful, and genuinely your own, is waiting on the other side of the choice you make right now. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.